The boarding gate buzzed with chatter, families hugging, kids dragging suitcases, flight attendants scanning passes. But when my mom's voice sliced through the noise, the entire terminal went quiet. "She only came to watch us leave," she said, loud enough for half the airport to hear. Heads turned. A few people even paused mid-step, their eyes darting toward me. 28-year-old Madison Hale, the one with the thrift store suitcase and the trembling hands. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. Mom stood tall in her tailored cream blazer, her gold bracelets catching the light. My stepfather, Greg, smirked beside her, holding her designer purse like he'd earned it. And next to them, my younger sister Chloe, picture perfect in her pastel dress, gave a little laugh, fake, sharp, the kind meant to cut. "Mom," I said quietly, "you don't have to." "Oh, please." She waved me off. "You knew we were flying out today. You didn't have to show up pretending you had a ticket." My throat tightened. "I came to say goodbye." Her lip curled. "Goodbye? Madison, you've been saying goodbye your whole life. Goodbye to college, goodbye to jobs, goodbye to ambition. Some of us have places to be." A murmur spread through the gate. A woman whispered, "Is that her daughter?" Another chuckled softly. I took a small step back, trying to make myself invisible. But before I could retreat completely, a voice echoed from the speaker. "Attention passengers of Flight 707 to Paris." Chloe linked her arm through Mom's. "Come on, Mom. They'll miss their first-class champagne without you." Mom smiled sweetly at the gawking crowd. "Let's not keep them waiting." And that's when it happened. Two men in Navy uniforms came jogging down the terminal, their badges flashing. "Apologies for the delay, ma'am," one of them said, slightly out of breath. "Your private jet is fueled and ready on runway 3. The red carpet is rolled out." The crowd went dead silent. The words private jet hit the air like thunder. Mom blinked. "Excuse me?" The man turned to me. "Miss Hale, we're ready for your departure. Your pilot is waiting." Every pair of eyes in that gate turned toward me. My mom's smirk vanished. Chloe's jaw literally dropped. Greg straightened his jacket, confusion spreading over his smug face. What are you talking about?" Mom stammered. The staff smiled politely. "Miss Madison Hale, you're cleared for immediate boarding. The car's waiting outside." I exhaled slowly, letting the moment sink in. For the first time in years, I didn't shrink. I stood tall, steady, silent, calm. I looked at my mom. Her perfectly lined lips trembled. "Madison, what is this?" I met her eyes, voice low. "You said I came to watch you leave. Turns out, it's you who'll be watching me." Her face drained of color. The two attendants gestured toward the private terminal door, waiting for me to follow. I rolled my suitcase forward. The crowd parted like water. As I passed, I caught Chloe whispering, "Is this a joke?" I smiled faintly. "No, Chloe. This is reality catching up." And with that, I walked toward the private wing, the echoes of my heels drowning out the stunned silence behind me. They didn't know that the girl they mocked, the one who'd been tossed aside like she'd never measure up, was now the sole heir to the company that funded their entire lifestyle. They were flying commercial. I was flying home. The automatic doors slid open, and warm sunlight flooded over me as I stepped outside the terminal. A black SUV waited at the curb, its driver already standing by, holding the door open like I was someone important. Funny how quickly things change when the truth finally comes to light. But standing there, watching my reflection in the glossy car door, I wasn't thinking about luxury. I was thinking about every time my mother told me I'd never make it. She said it when I dropped out of college because I couldn't afford tuition. She said it when I took a night shift at a diner, working double to pay rent. And she said it the day she told me I wasn't welcome at home anymore because Greg didn't want failure around his daughters. Her words had burned back then. But now? They fueled something sharper than pain. "Ms. Hale," the driver said gently, pulling me from my thoughts. "Your jet's ready. We can depart as soon as you're comfortable. I nodded, forcing a small smile. Thank you, David. He opened the SUV door, and as I climbed in, I caught a glimpse of them through the terminal glass. My mother's face pressed against the window, disbelief carved into every line. Chloe was on her phone, probably texting her friends in a panic. Greg's jaw was tight, his pride cracking right there in public. They used to love attention, but not this kind. Inside the SUV, the world went quiet. The seats were soft, the air smelled of leather and lavender, and for a moment, I just let myself breathe. Then my phone buzzed.
Mom.
Mom, what's going on? Why are they saying your name? Madison, answer me. Mom, is this some joke? I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Then I typed slowly. Me. You'll find out soon enough. I hit send, and it felt freeing. The drive toward the private hangar was short, but every second felt like a lifetime. I watched the city blur by. The same streets I used to walk with grocery bags cutting into my hands, the same skyline that once made me feel small. Not anymore. When we reached the runway, the jet gleamed in the sun. My company's logo, Hale Innovations, was painted along its side. A name my father built, one my mother helped destroy. He'd been the real visionary, Daniel Hale, founder of one of the biggest renewable energy startups in the country. After he died, my mother sold her shares for a fraction of what they were worth, desperate for fast money and a new husband. She left me nothing but memories and debt. But what she didn't know was that my father left something else, something hidden. A trust. A sealed clause that only activated when I turned 28. 2 weeks ago, a letter arrived from his old lawyer. Your inheritance has matured, it said. You're now the majority shareholder of Hale Innovations. I didn't tell anyone. Not even when the company reached out to schedule my first private flight to the main branch in Seattle. I wanted them to see the truth unfold with their own eyes. And today they did. As the driver carried my bags to the steps of the jet, I caught my reflection in the silver medal. My hair tousled from the wind, my heart pounding, but my eyes steady. For years, I chased their approval. Now I realized I didn't need it. Just as I was about to board, a voice called out behind me. Madison. I turned. My mother was running down the tarmac, security calling after her. Her heels clicked frantically against the concrete. Madison, wait. She looked desperate, mascara smudged, her blazer hanging off one shoulder. I hadn't seen her like that since my father's funeral. Mom, you shouldn't be here. She stopped a few feet away, breathless. I didn't know. You didn't tell us. Why would you embarrass me like that in public? I stared at her. Embarrass you? I repeated softly. You did that to me for years. Her eyes flickered. You could have just told me about the company. We could have worked together. I almost laughed. Worked together? You sold your shares, remember? You said Dad's work was a waste of time. That his dreams didn't pay bills. She flinched. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. My tone was calm, but it cut through her excuses. You meant every word, and now you have to live with them. The captain stepped out of the jet. Ms. Hale, we're ready whenever you are. Mom's hand trembled as she reached toward me. Please, don't shut us out like this. I took a deep breath, meeting her tearful eyes. You did that long before I ever could. Then I turned away and climbed the steps. The engines roared to life, and through the window, I saw her shrink smaller and smaller as we lifted off, her perfect world crumbling behind her. For the first time, I wasn't the one left standing at the gate. They were, and they'd have to watch as the daughter they abandoned took back everything they threw away. The hum of the engines was steady, soft, almost too calm for what was happening inside me. I leaned back against the leather seat, the city shrinking below like a memory fading out of reach. The stewardess offered me a drink, but I just smiled politely and waved it away. I didn't want champagne. I wanted quiet. Quiet enough to finally hear my own heartbeat after years of being drowned out by someone else's judgment. I stared out the window. Clouds drifted past, glowing gold in the sunlight. For the first time in forever, I wasn't running from something, I was heading toward it. Seattle wasn't just a destination. It was the beginning of everything I'd been building in secret. When Dad was alive, he used to tell me, legacy isn't about what people remember, it's about who you prove wrong without saying a word. I didn't understand it back then, but I did now. Every insult, every rejection, every night crying in that tiny apartment while they ate dinners I wasn't invited to, that was fuel. Quiet, invisible fuel that burned until it became strength. My phone buzzed again. Chloe, Mom's crying. She says you're overreacting. Me. I'm just finally reacting. Seconds later, another message popped up. Chloe, Greg's furious. He said you embarrassed the family. I smirked. Which family? The one that threw me out or the one that pretends I don't exist? There was no reply. Just the little scene mark. I set my phone down and closed my eyes. But my thoughts didn't rest. For years, I stayed silent because it was easier, because no matter what I said, Mom twisted it, turned me into the villain. I believed her when she said I wasn't enough. I believed her when she said no one wanted a girl who never finished what she started. But she was wrong. I finished everything, just not in front of her. When the jet landed, my assistant was waiting at the hangar, a tall woman in her 30s with a clipboard and a warm smile. Ms. Hale, welcome back to Seattle. Your team's been expecting you. Thanks, Olivia. We walked toward the black sedan parked nearby. As soon as I stepped inside, my phone started vibrating again nonstop. Calls. Messages. Even Greg's number flashing across the screen. I ignored them all. At the headquarters of Hale Innovations, the glass building rose like something out of a dream. My father's name, Daniel Hale, etched in silver near the entrance. My chest tightened at the sight of it. Would you like to head straight to the boardroom? Olivia asked. Yes, I said quietly. It's time. Inside, the executives stood as I entered, some curious, some skeptical, all waiting for me to prove I belonged. These were people who'd once worked under my father, the same ones who watched my mother sell everything and walk away. I stood at the head of the table. Good morning, I said, steady and calm. I'm Madison Hale. As of last week, I'm the new majority shareholder of Hale Innovations. Whispers broke out across the room. I know many of you remember my father, I continued. He believed this company wasn't just about business, it was about creating change. And that's exactly what I plan to continue. But I also know what happened after he passed. I know who profited off his absence. A man at the end of the table shifted uncomfortably. I met his gaze. That ends today. The silence was thick enough to choke on. But I didn't stop. I spoke clearly, confidently about the expansion projects, the clean energy initiative, the restructuring I'd already signed off on. They listened. And when I finished, the room broke into applause. As they stood, one of the older board members approached me, a kind-eyed man who'd worked with my dad since the early days. You're just like him, he said softly. He'd be proud of you. For a moment, my throat tightened. I hope so, I whispered. That night, back in my penthouse suite overlooking the skyline, I finally allowed myself to breathe. The city lights shimmered below, and the air carried that faint salt smell from the bay. I poured myself a glass of water and stood by the window. My reflection looked calm, composed, but my heart was still heavy. Winning didn't erase the scars. It just proved they healed. Then came another message. Mom, I saw the news. You're running Hale Innovations now? Mom, Madison, can we talk? Mom, Greg didn't mean the things he said before. We're proud of you. I didn't reply. Not yet. A few minutes later, a call came from an unknown number. I answered. Madison Hale? The voice was sharp, unfamiliar. This is Officer Reynolds with the Seattle Police Department. There's been an incident involving your mother and stepfather. We need you to come down to the station. I froze. What happened? He hesitated. It's better we speak in person. The call ended, leaving the sound of my heartbeat pounding through the quiet. I stood there, staring out the window, the lights of the city blurring through my tears. For years, I dreamed of seeing them broken, but not like this. And as the night deepened, one question burned in my mind. Was this karma, or just the final price of silence? The fluorescent lights in the police station buzzed faintly as I sat across from the officer. My hands were clasped together, heart steady but heavy. After everything that had happened, I couldn't tell if I was ready for this, or if anyone ever could be. Officer Reynolds flipped open his file. "Your mother and stepfather were detained earlier this evening," he said carefully. "Apparently, they attempted to access one of your corporate accounts. The security system flagged it as a breach." My breath caught. "They what?" He nodded. "Your mother claimed it was a misunderstanding. But your legal department already filed the report. The company's funds are protected. Nothing was taken." I looked down, my pulse pounding in my ears. "Of course she did," I whispered. "Even now, she still thinks I owe her something." The officer studied me for a moment. "Would you like to press charges?" For a long time, I didn't answer. My mind flashed through every insult, every door slammed in my face, every cold stare that told me I wasn't enough. Then I thought about my father, about what he'd taught me about strength. "No," I said finally. "But I want a restraining order. They're not part of my life anymore." He nodded. "Understood. We'll process that." As I left the station, the night air was sharp and cold. I wrapped my coat tighter around myself, my heels clicking softly against the pavement. Outside, the city lights flickered on wet asphalt, the world moving as if nothing had changed. But for me, everything had. My driver, David, opened the door. "Rough night?" he asked gently. I gave a faint smile. "You could say that." We drove through the quiet streets, the hum of the engine the only sound between us. I glanced out the window, watching the glow of the skyline reflect in the puddles. My reflection stared back, stronger, steadier, finally free. When we reached my penthouse, I paused at the entrance. My phone buzzed again, one last message. "Mom, I just wanted you to know. I never hated you. I was just jealous you had his eyes." I stared at the words for a long time. No apology. No real remorse. Just another way of making herself the victim. I deleted the message. Inside, the elevator opened to the top floor, revealing the floor-to-ceiling windows of my home. The view stretched endlessly, the city a constellation beneath me. I walked over to the glass and pressed my palm against it, the cool surface grounding me. Dad's framed photo sat on the desk, him smiling in that old workshop, grease on his hands, sunlight hitting his face. I picked it up, my throat tightening. "I did it, Dad," I whispered. They tried to bury me, but all they did was plant me deeper. For a moment, I imagined his voice again. The way he'd tell me, "Never fight them to prove your worth. Just rise so high they have to look up to see you." I smiled faintly, tears blurring my vision. The city outside pulsed with life. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I wasn't the failure at the airport gate. I was Madison Hale, the woman who turned pain into purpose, silence into strength. And tomorrow, when the press released the headlines, "Estranged daughter of former CEO takes over Hale Innovations after public airport scene goes viral," I knew my mother would read every word. The same crowd that once pitted me would see the truth. I never came to watch them leave. I came to remind them what they lost when they walked away. And this time, I wasn't the one boarding a plane. I was the one flying.